So here are a list of the keyboard shortcuts, one of them being to find this dialog box. So all of these shortcuts basically have Control Alt, and then you can select the shortcut. This one we're looking at here is the question mark. So if you want to find that page, you go to Control Alt and then question mark, and this is going to give us the information for your company ID and so on if you need that information, if you're communicating with Intuit about your account, for example. And then you've got your shortcuts here. So just a quick look at these. You can experiment with them yourself. Like I say, personally, I think the navigation of the system is pretty well laid out. So using the mouse is fairly efficient. But anytime you use the shortcut, it could be a little bit faster to do things with keystrokes. And of course, keystrokes and shortcuts are impressive to other people. And we all know that that's important in an office space. You got to impress people with your keyboard shortcut knowledge. So in any case, we have the normal forms, the invoices, the checks, the estimate, the expense form, and so on and so forth. Now, these are pretty readily available over here in the plus item, which is here. And it's also, if you close the hamburger, it's going to be up top. So you can find them fairly quickly, but if you're going into an invoice all the time or any of these in particular forms, the shortcut might be worth learning. In other words, if you're in like the accounts receivable department and you spend a whole lot of time making invoices, then obviously it might behoove you, it might be worth your time to learn the invoice shortcut. Whereas if you're not using the invoice all the time, you probably don't really need it. So that's how I would see these forms. If you make journal entries all the time, maybe you want to learn basically that shortcut. We have the expense, receive payment, journal entry, customers. So this one I think could be useful because the customer field is a little bit buried. That's over here in the sales item. So anything when you're going to that backup detail so that you can communicate with customers, if you're in, for example, the accounts receivable side of things, then you might be talking to customers about trying to collect on their receivables, and it might be a nice shortcut to go to the default to the customers. Run payroll, vendors, similarly with the vendor side of things, I think this might be one of the more useful shortcuts. And then the chart of accounts. Chart of accounts is kind of buried, so that could be a useful one. Lists, that might be useful if you like the lists drop down. The help menu, possibly one of the most important ones for just everyone in general. You can shortcut to the help, although it's up here, you have the help item, but that might be useful. The global search can be a useful one. We'll check that out. And then focus on the left, and this is the dialog box. And then we have the exit transaction view. So that might be a little bit easier than hitting the X button up top, or just a little bit more fancy to do. But again, it's probably not saving that much time. Similarly, cancel out will do much the same things. Oftentimes, it might have different uses in some specific areas. And then save and new. So when you want it, when you're in the form, you can go save and new, save and close, save and send, and then the print. So let's just take a look at a couple of these. So like I say, I think